Turn up the dial, feel the vibe, get ready to ignite. Untold stories in the airways, flying through the night. Experience voices, tales so bold. Streaming live, the truth unfolds. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's so I remember right. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can't hide. Aliens in the attic, UFOs in the sky. Cryptids lurking, oh my, ghosts in the hallway whispering your name. The paranormal, the unexplained. Become a VIP, get the inside scoop. Unlock the mysteries, be part of the group. Live streaming stories, they're talking to you. Super chats buzzing, join the crew. Untold Radio Network, the secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wild member ride. Share and subscribe, on the side where truth can hide. So if you've got the guts and you want to explore, tune into the Untold, it's what you're looking for. From aliens to ghosts and all that's unseen. Untold Radio Network, where the world's mysteries convene.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Spectrum here on the Untold Radio Network. Today's episode is pre-recorded, so we are not live in studio today. We are going to be pre-recorded, and we have a awesome show here, so we're going to jump right into it. But first, guys, if you want to show your support for all things here on the Untold Radio Network, here's how.
Hey, Untold Radio Network fans. Want exclusive perks and to support our channel? Introducing our YouTube membership program with 3 amazing levels. Get loyalty badges that level up to different cryptids the longer you're a supporter. How cool is that? You'll also get access to custom Bigfoot emojis and priority in chat. Upgrade to Backstage Pass for exclusive wallpapers, photos, status updates, discounted books, and merchandise. Go all in with the producer level for everything mentioned plus member shoutouts. Ready for an enhanced experience? Join now, pick your membership level, and let's make this journey even more exciting together.
All right, guys, my guest has been on the show a couple times now, so really needs no introduction, but we're going to give one anyway. My guest is Shetan Noir. She is the current owner of Squatch GQ Magazine LLC and also a Michigan-based author and paranormal travel journalist. She also teaches courses on the paranormal history of the Great Lakes and cryptozoology of North America at the Owens Community College and Kellogg's Community College. Shetan also teaches classes for the University of Magikus, which is owned by or co-owned by Patti Negri. Shetan has written several books on cryptozoology and has more upcoming book projects. Without any further ado, please welcome back to the show, Shetan Noir. Welcome back to the program.
Hi, how you doing?
I am doing well. So I want to thank you because today's episode is pre-recorded, and you have graciously decided to donate some time today to put some shows in the bank here for unfortunately when people have to back out last minute or something, and we need some shows to run here. So I have no idea how dated this material is going to be when it comes out or what's going to happen here. But someday you're going to see this video and you're going to know somebody had something happen. There you go. But anyway, Shetan, thank you so much for coming on today. I look forward to this because every time that we talk, I learn something. And I learned something about you because there's so much things. Like I met you for like Bigfoot, Dogman, and some like Great Lakes stuff. I know you did Mothman, but every time we talk, I dig more into all the stuff that you're into. Just everything. I know that you do rock hounding. You go to like gem shows and rock collecting and big into dinosaurs and paleontology. And you are a mass of information and just so much stuff to get into. But the last time that you were on my show, you had asked about coming on and talking about one of your new projects, which was Cannibals.
Yes. Well, cannibals in human folklore and folklore's history. So we're not going to talk about Jeffrey Dahmer or anything like that.
Okay.
So, because even though he was a cannibal, he doesn't fall into the category of Windigo or a stone giant or a ice giant, or even the little small Pukwudgie type creatures that, according to Native American history, are cannibals. And there's differences between, like, the Pukwudgies are an actual physical creature.
Mm-hmm.
Jeffrey Dahmer was a human being who was a cannibal. He was also a serial killer. But when we look at the case of the Windigo, Windigo is not this thing that there was a movie that was called, the Windigo. That's not what traditionally the Windigo is. Also, these creepypasta podcasts. Now, I'm guilty to listening to them. I enjoy listening to them while I'm doing my craft projects, while I'm cleaning my house. And there are common things that you will hear and you know it's a Windigo story as soon as they say it was standing 9 feet tall and had horns on its head like a deer and a deer's head, and it was emaciated and gray in color and it stank like rotting meat. Okay, if it's emaciated and falling apart, it would probably stink. But it is never described in Native American legends as having the head of a deer with horns. That's not Windigo.
Where did that come from then?
So that is people trying to tie in the Skinwalker legends with Windigo.
Right. So like Skinwalkers, we're going to slow down here because you've just thrown out a lot of stuff.
Sorry. I must
the deep end of this pool, I guess.
and I must apologize if you hear any growling or little barks. My miniature pinchers are currently, I'll say my goblins are currently loose in my bedroom, and they're having a party right now. So in case you see anything jumping on my head or running behind me, or it's a four-legged goblin.
Perfect.
So just ignore it. I try to, but yes, we'll slow it down.
Because you've dropped ice giants, Pukwudgies, serial killers, and Windigos already and it's only the first 10 minutes of the show, and we haven't even covered anything. So let's start with the Windigo here. Now, So the antlers thing, I get this. This is totally not correct. Now, when you talk about the skinwalkers, though, and that's where this came from, we're kind of talking like the
Well,
headdress stuff,
there's
right?
elements of that people try to push onto Windigo.
Yes.
So essentially, a skinwalker is a Native American shaman or a Native American magic user who has chosen to use dark magic. Now, in order to be able to do that, they need the skin and bones and pelt of an animal.
Mhm.
Most traditions say they have to kill someone who is very dear to them. So a lot of times, unfortunately, it's either a senior citizen or like a mother or father, or it's an infant that they've given birth to or are the father of. So that elements of it being an amalgamation where it's humanoid but has animal type features like the head of a deer. What is the number one easiest like caught animal in the country?
Mhm.
All you need is headlights. A deer. So it does make for a very creepy, very, supernatural creature when you superimpose the head and antlers of a deer onto a human figure and you elongate that figure. But that's not Windigo.
Right. So
Honestly, that picture, that description of a creature it's not actually either Windigo or Skinwalker. It's an amalgamation of both of them.
Mhm.
What Windigo is, so we're going to talk Windigo for right now.
Well, hang on. Let me say, so skinwalkers aren't known for cannibalism. They're more dark magic and stalking, killing, and stuff like that. So that's a major differential right there. Is why we're setting those aside. So we're not going to talk about skinwalkers anymore. We're going to focus more on the cannibalistic folklore and stuff. Right there we go.
Okay.
I just want to bring that in as to where the whole deer antlers thing and bring it around. Okay, so cannibalistic.
So the Windigo, according to Native American folklore, legends, storytelling, Windigo is more of a psychosis. So what would happen is these hunters would go out in groups, and we're talking pre-1900s. We're talking, back before their language was even thought about being written down. The earliest fur traders were the ones who were like, ooh, what do you mean, Windigo? So Windigo is a psychosis. It's a mental condition. What would happen is these hunters, these Native Americans, Native Alaskans, Native Canadians, who are living off of the land and living in tribes, would send out hunters during the dark winter months. And sometimes they would travel days without finding any prey items to kill, skin, bring the meat and resources back to the tribe. So if you're part of this hunting party, let's say there's 5 of you who go out, okay? And everybody's looking for game, and you're running low on rations. The weather is starting to get bad because this is wintertime. And we're talking like Alaska down to the northern United States is normally Windigo area. So your group is starting to wear thin on resources. So once your resources are gone and you have not caught and killed any game, because let's face it, those animals, they bed down when it's wintertime and they only come out when they need to. So the first thing they might try to do is try to chew the leather on their clothing or on their moccasins or stuff like that as a food source. But the number one taboo would be like the Donner Party would be if you had to eat as a last resource your companions. But if you listen to a lot of the Native American legends and the stories of this, it was not uncommon. It wasn't common, but it wasn't uncommon if you sent out 5 people and only one of them came back, but he looked very well fed. The rest of the tribe would start to question, where are the bodies buried? And as soon as the first spring thaw came, you better believe that tribe was out looking for those bodies. One, they wanted to make sure that they were properly buried. 2, they wanted to make sure that they had not been eaten. Because that member of the tribe who came back and who had eaten his companions, well, there's no telling who he might eat in the future. So that person would generally be ostracized, or if they had enough fear of him, they would actually kill him, and they would make sure that the whole body, including the heart, was burnt. Because if you do not burn the heart, the person can come back. So this mental condition of Windigo happens because even though it might be the last resource at that moment in time, what happens is a mental switch gets flipped, and that person suddenly, for whatever reason, will take that option first. And usually, members of the tribe, like the children, if they suspect that there's a Windigo in the tribe, the children are put under guard, because that's the first members of the tribe that the Windigo will go after, is young children. And so there's a really good podcast. I believe the podcast host is named Hammerstein. He talks a lot about the Canadian Native American legends of North America, and some of the northern United States Native American legends. And he talks a lot about how the white settlers who would come in would not be understanding why this person was an outcast, or why this certain person was going to be put to death. And they would question, and the tribe would explain to them, no, what you're not understanding is this person ate some of our other tribes members, and we don't want him infecting everybody else, so we're putting him to death.
So it's kind of like you go out, you have this incidents happen or whatever, and there's a switch that gets flipped, this inhibition gets lowered, right? So
right.
I mean, people go into a store, right, and they steal a pack of gum, and they think,
right.
well, this is bad, I shouldn't do that, and they get away with it. Well, I got away with stealing a pack of gum. Well, now I can steal a candy bar. Well, now I can steal, makeup, or now I can steal a TV, and it goes on, because now that you've gotten away with this one. Yep. So, do you think that this was a matter of, for survival at least, was it somebody passed away in that group and they ate the bag to survive, or did they just outright kill them to survive? So
that is always what you hoped happened. Okay, somebody couldn't survive, the cold of the night, and as a last means, the rest of, the group ate him. Mm-hmm. But generally, you'll have one person who really enjoyed that meal, and suddenly they'll go off hunting with another member, and that other member doesn't come back with that person, and they'll make up an excuse. They'll say they got attacked by a cougar or something like that and killed. Well, that's when everybody starts questioning, will take us to the body. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, the creature carried, the mountain lion carried off the body. Okay. show us the blood trail.
So
Because we can eat cougar, we can eat mountain lion. Let's go find this big cat and avenge our. And so, and they will like, you know, it's like one-on-one. They will pick off other people of the group and feast on them.
So that's
And then
the
and then
flip there, yeah. When you
and like
accident
so
happens, yeah.
so like the first time it happens and they make it back to camp and they're like, oh, we couldn't find anything. The only thing I found like was enough to keep me alive and everybody else perished. And if the tribe doesn't like insist on knowing where the bodies are buried, then this person might go out hunting with another party.
Mm-hmm.
But if they got away with it with that first party, it's going to be very suspicious when they come back from a second party and they're not showing any signs of like wasting or withering or you know, hunger, but there's nobody else coming back with them. So that's kind of suspicious if they got a first time and then they come back a second time and the same events happen. Then the tribe is going to really start questioning, where did you say those first bodies were buried?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's different accounts of like they go back, you know, the tribe goes and looks for the bodies and they find the encampment and they're like, no, clearly that's not what was going on because there's human bones everywhere. There's, you know, leather. There's, you know, we know what you did. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a human eating another human being. And that's what the Windigo psychosis is.
Okay. So that's completely different than like there are still tribes on small islands and stuff today, as well as reported throughout history, like Columbus and stuff traveling around and talked of landing on islands of cannibalism and stuff. So as far as those things go, like there doesn't seem to be when we talked at the beginning about the skinwalker, there's this magical aspect to it where you kill people and do stuff to get powers. And we're talking about the Windigo here is just kind of a survival and the flip or the switch gets flipped and stuff. So now on these other islands where you have these cannibalistic tribes, what is the mentality behind that? Is there a magical aspect to it? Is there a power, or why are they?
For some of so I can't answer for every tribe.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
But for some tribes, it's thought that if you do consume that person, you absorb their energy. And I don't want to say magical powers or essences, but if you are a very primitive, remote tribe, and this is your first time seeing a group of white people who have guns and fancy clothing and stuff like that, well, obviously, these people are different than you are, and maybe you want to, you know, possess things like those people have. So you might eat them and think, this is going to grant me what those human beings had.
Like knowledge and stuff, or just, I mean, like
that's a possibility. It's also said that they call they call when it is human beings served up, it's called long pig, because apparently human beings taste like pork. And it's not that uncommon with even tribes in like Papua New Guinea, South America, Africa. There are tribes who have historically been called cannibals. Now, are they cannibals? Is it just part of their culture and a ritual And the more that they are exposed to the modern world, the more that they have interactions with other cultures around the world, they realize, maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe we don't do that anymore. And certainly, we hear reports of, cannibalism as a cultural, thing. And we all, do one of those. Because honestly, when we hear serial killers doing it, we're like, oh yeah, that's crazy. That's, that person's mentally unstable. But when you have a whole culture of people who are like, so-and-so died, fire up the barbecue. It's not what you want to hear. But, so I'm more familiar with the Native American aspects where, yes, there is the Windigo psychosis, but things like the Pukwudgies and the stone giants, those were not humans. Those were humanoids, but they weren't humans. So to see the cannibalism in those creatures, that was something to fear. That was something to despise and to, have disgust for. And the Native Americans here in North America were very opposed to that. That's something you do not do. You don't eat your family members or your fellow neighbors. But that seems to kind of change when you get to South American and Central American cultures and other parts of the world that are a little bit more old world. For some reason, there is not an acceptance, but it's almost okay, because when you look at ancient cultures like the Mayans and the Aztecs, they did human sacrifices.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know for sure what the many steps of the rituals were. Did they consume the blood? We know that they took the hearts. Did those priests consume the blood? Because there's power in the blood.
Mm-hmm.
So if you consume your enemy's blood, does that give you power over them? Does that make you more powerful against them? So there's that aspect of it. And this was before the Spaniards even introduced their sadistic, nature to those, Asian or Central and South American, cultures. So this concept that in North America, where we're like, oh no, we don't do that. In other parts of the world, it's like, yeah, well, we might have ate him, we might have sacrificed him and drank some of the blood. Were we wrong in that? And this is where, you get different cultures from around the world of what is acceptable human behavior and what isn't. And when it isn't acceptable, behavior, who becomes the monster?
For being the United States of America, we have Western culture, and then we basically have the rest of the world.
Right.
And in Western culture here in the United States, we are so limited on our views of culture and what is acceptable, where there are so many traditions of death and the afterlife and stuff around the world. And it makes me wonder, why, if we're the great American melting pot, and we've always been seen, as this place for the starving, huddled masses from around the entire world to come here and mingle and bring their own cultures and stuff. Why aren't we more accepting of these different cultures then? Why isn't America more hodgepodge to our rituals and stuff?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think it's a certain set of human behavior, like what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. But then you have to look at like, okay, so most Americans like beef. We'll eat beef all day long. In India, no, you don't eat beef. But you eat lamb and chicken and things of that nature. Well, there's really not that thriving of a, palate for lamb meat over here. I mean, if you're Middle Eastern, yes. But on the whole, our primary, 4 proteins are chicken, beef, pork, fish. And that's like our basic 4. You go to any fast food place and you can order a chicken sandwich or a hamburger, a fish sandwich. Mm-hmm. You rarely see lamb and you never see human. It's just, not, it's not on the menu. And yet we have these references to these different, creatures or cultures in human folklore that it's almost like the boogeyman. It's if you don't, behave, this is what happens.
Do you know of, and it's okay if you don't, but do you know of any, there's so many different death rituals and cultures. Like one of my favorite things was I watched Josh Gates's documentary, the series on death around the world, and how different stuff was from their the ways that they treat it. There's the one that always stood out was the one, I don't remember where it is, but the body of the deceased lives in the family for a year after he passes away. Mm-hmm. They bathe it every day. They dress it. They have their meals around it. And then after a year, they parade it through the city. And then they have the big ceremony to dispose of it, bury it, whatever. But there's so many different rituals. Do you know of any cultures around the world where the primary death ritual is consumption?
I don't believe so. I mean, there might be rumors of it, but most of the time, you wouldn't eat your family members. You might eat a neighbor who passed away. You might eat somebody that you killed in battle.
Right.
But for the most part, it's not a family member who would be consumed. Now, we're talking, different cultures. And as a everyday life, we're not talking extreme situation like the Donner Party.
Correct.
Where they were literally boiling leather, to like keep themselves from eating each other. And then it was only cannibalism because the first person died and they ate that body. And as people continued to die, that became a food source. They weren't hunting each other down and eating each other. It just became, a available food source due to the circumstances.
Interesting. Okay, so you've mentioned this a couple times, and well, I want to touch on this before we get into it, though. Is cannibalism is pretty much defined as eating your own species, right?
Right.
Well, when you bring up the Puckwudgies and these rock giants, are they eating humans or are they eating themselves?
So stone giants.
Let's stay on those guys for a while. I want to get to these guys because they're interesting here. All right. So tell me about stone giants.
So stone giants, and there's several different names by several different tribes for them. We're just going to refer to them as stone giants. There's like 20 different names for them.
Are they made out of stone, or were they like miners?
No, they were called stone giants because they had stone hearts
Oh,
or,
gotcha.
or
So
ice hearts.
they're like a humanoid though, like a
Yeah,
regular typical David and Goliath giant.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So they would primarily hunt humans to eat them. The Fraser Valley in British Columbia is known for a lot of stone giant or giant, legends, and almost all of them, the human being was on the menu for the stone giants. And the only way to kill them was, of course, you had to destroy their hearts.
Mhm.
And fire was a primary source of doing that. You had to burn the heart. And the stone giants, we're going to say probably 8 to 9 feet tall. And this is not Bigfoot. It's not Dogman. These
Right.
were very different from what you would call a Bigfoot or a Dogman. These were human, but very, tall, humanish, but were more made out of elements of nature. And were hunting not only the Native Americans, but the fur traders who were coming through. And the fur traders were made aware of this because of the storytelling that the Native Americans would do. The Native American languages and stories and legends were not written down until the Jesuit priests came through and taught them how to write. And that's why you will see a lot of Native American words have a lot of duplicate letters. And the pronunciation of the word is not written how it's spelled, or not spoken the way it's spelled. Because they had nothing to base their language off of. So it was a lot of interpretation and a lot of translating. And so these legends and these names that we have now are, these go back generations upon generations because the Native American legends were a spoken language.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a goblin.
So are the stone giants the same as the red-haired giants?
No.
Okay.
No.
See, because right here in the Midwest where we are, obviously, we have the red-haired giants, the copper mining ones, and you hear a lot of the similar stuff with that as far as, the kind of at odds with the Native American tribes and stuff in this area. So,
right.
Interesting.
Yeah, the stone giants. So the stone giants were the great big ones, who you would kill by, you had to get to the heart, and that was the only way to kill them. Now, going to the Southwest, there was reports of a Bigfoot type creature covered in reddish hair that were cannibals and would hunt humans for food. And they were situated in the Southwest. And there was actually reports of people had found a cave with human bones inside of it, and what looked like reddish hair here and there. And they found evidence of a very large primate. Now, whether that's a true story or not, but there are Native American legends of a creature out there. Now, similarly, that creature could also be called a Windigo, even though traditionally, by the northern tribe standards, that's not what a Windigo is. But in the Southwest, that Bigfoot creature that is a cannibal, that would be called a Windigo by them.
Mm-hmm. There's stories in the Native American tribes and stuff too of Bigfoot type creatures or Bigfoot themselves committing cannibalistic attacks on the natives, and that's why you used to have this very healthy, happy communion between the natives and the Bigfoot. But then they started to take like the women and the children, and there's all these stories of like burning them alive in caves and stuff. The Bigfoot's being burned alive in caves because of that. So, I mean, you got these stories all throughout history in that. But the one thing I'd like to say is, you know, for people listening, I mean, everybody that listens to my show is probably pretty open-minded and stuff, but anybody that just kind of stumbles across my show for whatever reason, you're talking about giants or all this stuff, you know, and people are like, well, that's all folklore, legend, and you know, not real. But what I always say is, you know, same as dragons, what happened to every mythological creature in all your folklore, legends, and mythology? All these species of giants and trolls and dragons, every story, what happens?
That's a very good question.
They go and they kill them, right? Every story that you have a dragon, you have a goblin, you have whatever. Oh, the whole village gets up, they take their pitchforks, they go out and they kill it. They get the knight of the castle and he goes out and kills it. Well, why don't we have these creatures today? What happened?
Because we killed them.
I wonder. Yeah, there just doesn't happen to be any around today. I don't know why. I wonder why. So I don't know. I just want to make sure that people keep that in mind, because all of these stories throughout history, there's so many things that, you know, may not just be folklore and legend that may have existed that we just destroyed. I mean, look at the things that we destroyed now, you know, the Tasmanian tiger, the wolves, the bison we've hunted to extinction. We could have talked about the bison the same way we talk about dragons. This large, hairy, mythological beast that roamed the prairies and stuff. And, you know, oh, it doesn't exist. That's just folklore. You know, give it a couple more years and you know, the way that we revisionist history and stuff, and we're not going to have buffalo either. I'm just saying. Right.
I mean, well, I think moose are mythological creatures because I've never seen a real one, not even at a zoo.
Really?
You know? I've never seen a real one. Nope. I've seen taxidermied ones. I've seen, you know, pictures of moose, but I've never seen a real one. Not even at a zoo. So, especially when it says that there's one in the enclosure and you're like, I don't see it. Okay. Where is it? So
everyone says they've seen Bigfoot too, but I have to tell you, I have personally seen moose in person. They do exist.
Okay.
I'll tell you, I
will take your word for it.
All right.
Now,
that one I'll vouch for.
So on the other end of the spectrum, we have the cannibalistic puckwudgies.
Yeah.
And once again, so we have different races, species, cultures of puckwudgies all over the North America, from Alaska all the way down to the Southwest. But it's not until you get down to the Southwest that you see a change in behavior, and the puckwudgies are cannibals. Not only will they hunt human beings, but they will hunt each other. They will hunt other tribes of similar humanoid creatures, and they will kill each other and they will eat each other. And once again, the only way to kill them is to stab them in the heart. But it's said that this race of puckwudgies, actually, they remove their hearts and they keep them hidden in their caves in little cloth sacks. And it's not until you're captured by them and hopefully survive to a point that you can get into that cave and stab all the hearts and kill them. So once again, we see a behavior that we as normal human beings are like, no, we don't eat each other. And so this species becomes the monster, and we're like, no, we don't do that. Whatever you guys are doing, that's a no-no.
It's interesting that, you know, you have your primary cannibal stories that we've kind of talked about here, Alaska, Canada, northern United States, and then you're talking about the southern United States as well, are very harsh climates. And I wonder if the whole cannibal thing goes along with, the fact that there's less food sources. It's more scarce, that you have to fight harder for food.
And certainly that is a possibility, because when you go northern, United States up to snow country, you get less and less prey, less and less food sources. Even vegetation is much more limited, because for some of those states, it's from October to May that they have snow. So your berries, your nuts, your plant matter, your fruits, vegetables are, minuscule. You can have all the fresh water you want, but if you don't have anything to eat, you're going to be starving. Even the fish, when any ice fisherman will tell you, when it gets to the point, where that ice is frozen over, fish are no longer interested in feeding. They go into rumination, and they slow their heart rates down, and they are pretty much catatonic.
Little goblin. A lot of your creatures that are up there in the north as well, like Bergman's rule, the farther away from the equator you get, the bigger you get. A lot of these animals are large too. So your caribou, your elk, your moose and stuff in these northern environments, you have to be healthy, well-fed, powerful animal to be able to take down that prey to begin with. So if you haven't eaten for a couple days and now all of a sudden there's a herd of caribou there, the chances that you're going to even be able to take down one of those prey when you finally find it is not that good.
Yeah. And then when you go to the Southwest, you're looking at, so yes, they do have deer in the Southwest.
Pronghorn.
But they also have, they have pronghorns. But you're much more likely to run across rattlesnake, scorpions, tarantulas.
No, thank you.
None of those are really food items unless you're on Naked and Afraid or Survivor. Not even Survivor. Coyotes, mountain lions, rabbits to a degree. You're not seeing, and your water sources are much more limited. Your freshwater sources are much more. So when you're putting living organisms in an environment where survival is already pretty rough, but if you have other competing organisms, so humans and pukwudgies, or humans and stone giants, that are all competing for the same resources, then one is going to try to take the other out. And we as human beings, half of the population does not believe that these creatures exist, or they think that they are nothing but stories, which is to the advantage of the pukwudgies, the stone giants, the Windigos, the skinwalkers, all these creatures, because if you don't believe that I exist, then you don't believe I'm a threat. So, I challenge everybody to research folklore. Take a good, long look at Native American stories, at whatever the folklore and superstitions are in your area, because they're there for a reason. Somebody didn't wake up one day and just say, "Oh, I think whistling in the woods is a bad thing at night." Okay, there's something behind that, because you know, different cultures around the world will tell you, don't whistle at night. Don't do it in the woods either. Different cultures around the world will tell you, do not go to this area because there's things that live there that will kill you, that might follow you back home. Different cultures around the world will say, hey, yeah, we know it was a really bad situation, but still what you did, you should not have eaten your neighbor. Okay? No, that's bad.
Okay, so there's a couple things I want to touch on here before we bring the show to the close here. So it's really interesting that a lot of these stories as well revolve around the heart. And you're going back again, way back into folklore, mythology, you know, tribal stories and stuff like that. And it's fascinating that this isn't modern science. This isn't, you know, we know that the heart is the center of your body that pumps the blood, and when it stops, you won't get blood flow, blah, 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 blah. It's not science. This is back in the day when, you know, you had these people just living off the land and stuff. They didn't have that stuff. So why did they consider this heart? Because obviously it's very important. They know, I mean, look at your vampire mythology. You got to stab it through the heart. You're talking about Windigo, you got to burn the hearts. The stone giants, you got to burn the hearts. The puckwedgies, you got to stab it in the heart. All that stuff revolves around the heart. Why? How did they know that this was such a big thing way back then?
Probably because they saw the heart as being where the soul is. And there's two death blows that you can deal out to the heart and to the head. Most of the time it's easier to stab somebody in the heart than it is in the head. People will protect their heads much more than they will their chests. But I think it's due to the fact that a lot of people associate the heart with being part of the human self and being part of the human soul. They're connected. And so when you take out the heart, in theory, that kills.
No, that's a really good point. I mean, like if you're talking about hunter gatherers and stuff, and that, you know, if you stab something in the heart, it's dead. If you, like you said, if you hit it in the head, it's dead. So I guess it completely makes sense that, you know, from a life-giving standpoint, those would be your two pivotal points, that taking out a heart would be taking out the life force of that entity, and they would associate it with it. So,
and and for most species, the brain is protected by a skull. And unless you go through the eye, most of the time you're not going to penetrate the skull to injure the brain enough to kill somebody. The heart, even though we've got a sternum there, we've got a rib cage. Yeah, but that rib cage has spaces, through it that you can get to that heart. So I think that the heart was easier to aim for and to, destroy than the brain.
Interesting. Okay. And then the last thing I want to go back to is, we talked, I don't remember if I talked about this or not, because now I feel like I've said this already, but the consumption of blood and other things for power. We see this a lot in like fairy tales and stories, I had her name a minute ago, the House of Bathory, the woman that killed
Bloody Mary.
Yeah, and she killed all these people and then bathed in their blood for youth.
So if you think about it, blood is what the body runs off of. You can't live if you don't have blood in your body. So it is, as much as the heart is connected to the soul, the blood is your life force. If you don't have blood, you're done. So there's an old saying, there's power in the blood. And that's been a thought for centuries now, that your life's energy, your magical powers is all in your blood.
Yep,
And so that is why a lot of folklore, a lot of legends deal with species that want to drink your blood. They want to consume your blood, because if they are an undead, or they are, you know, in between, interdimensional, that is a way to keep them in this world, is to drink the blood of a human, because humans are part of this world.
You're taking that life force from them
Yes.
to yourself. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. That's cool.
Yes.
One of the things that, okay, so this whole thing, like, it reminds me of etymology, right? So etymology is the study of words and where it comes, not entomology. That's the study of insects. And I always got to think before I say this, but it's etymology, I believe I'm right, is the study of words and language and stuff like that, and where these different things come from. And I absolutely love this. The more I learn about these things and where phrases come from and stuff, it's very interesting. And one of the things I want to bring up here is the blood of a virgin. And everybody always misrepresents this, because supposedly it's the blood of a virgin would be a virgin who has never had sex. Correct?
So it's thought that virgins are pure of sin, so therefore their blood is pure.
Right.
Sex is seen as the ultimate sin. So when a virgin has sex, they're no longer pure. So to be a pure virgin means your blood is pure. You have not committed any sins. You are that much closer to God, or your religious, icons. And that's why virgins were always so sought after. But you could always, with women, you can tell a virgin from a non-virgin. But boys, it's like, come on,
So do you know that that's wrong, though?
Oh, it is.
The blood of a virgin does not correlate with sex, but the blood of a virgin is from someone whose blood has not been used in a ceremony or spell before. So virgin blood is blood that has not been used in any kind of ritual or ceremony.
Okay.
Yeah. I when I heard that, I always thought exactly what you said, that whole line of, purity and all that stuff. And then when you look into the history of it and stuff, it's not. It's actually the blood of a pure person who has not been used in any ceremonies, which could still very well be a virgin, a sexual virgin and stuff, which is why that kind of translates in the purity and stuff. But it's the purity of not having been used in a ritual.
Okay.
Yeah. And it may be both, depending on what culture or whatever you get.
Right.
But I do know that it's that way. So that's interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, see, I learned something from you now.
Absolutely. I love it. Like I said, every time you come on my show, I learn something and we go down some weird rabbit holes together. So I'm glad that I can share some of that back sometimes. But awesome. Well, we are at our hour here, so I appreciate you coming on, and it's been really interesting. We've covered a lot of blood, guts, and gore, and had a little snack on the way, I suppose, and so. Hey, come over to my house for a barbecue this weekend. I'm just saying. We're having my neighbors over. I hope they don't listen to this show. Anyway, that's all the time we got for this week. Shetan, tell us all about your magazines. Where can people find you? All of your stuff, all that good stuff people want to know.
Okay, well, if you are interested in any of my books or magazines, you can find them on Amazon if you type in Squatch GQ magazine or Shetan Noir. If you want to keep up with my events, I do a lot of library presentations here in the state of Michigan. So you can find me on Facebook at Shetan Noir.
Very cool. And that stuff is in the show notes for anybody that would like to grab a book or see where you're going to be. So make sure you guys check that out. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it. And we're gonna talk to you again sometime very soon. Who knows?
Yep.
You will definitely be back. So I thank you for coming on, and I will talk to you later.
Okay, well, thank you.
Absolutely. All right, guys, that is our show for this week. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed it. Remember to go check out all of Shetan's books. She's got some amazing stuff out there, as well as Sasquatch GQ magazine. There's all kinds of stuff from rock hounding to paleontology and lake monsters, and you name it. Check it out on Amazon. The links are in the show notes somewhere down there, wherever you're watching, listening, or enjoying this podcast. Make sure you also like, subscribe, and enjoy the Untold Radio Network, as well as Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. Until next time, guys, remember, we're all part of the Paranormal Spectrum. Until next time, take care, be well, and I'll see you next week.
You seem to